Hey, AusetGypsters, ready to hit the road? I got my homemade almond milk espresso latte. Yes, I repurposed Starbucks to-go cups. I do. Alright, AusetGypsters. Our topic today is an astrological topic, and it seems to come up a lot with clients. Our topic is the Saturn return. No, not the No Doubt CD that came out in the 90s, although that was a pretty good CD. And if you don't know it, you probably should check it out. The Saturn return is something really powerful in our lives, and it seems to be more often than not, when clients come to me, it's because they're facing their Saturn return, and then I have to sit and explain to them what it is. So, I'm going to let all of you in on a little bit of Saturn return savvy, so that if you're dealing with it, about to deal with it, dealt with it, or know anybody about to go through it or going through it, you could help them out a little bit, or, put the information to good use. Now, astrologically, when we're born, if you look at a birth chart, it looks like a big wheel, lots of spokes, well, 12 to be exact, really. And all of the stars, all of the planets, fall into the different houses, which would be between those 12 spokes. And the constellations, which is fixed like a big belt around the Earth, is around this wheel. And Saturn, being one of the planets, of course, finds himself placed someplace within one of these high wedges or spaces between the spokes on the wheel. And then from that point, from birth, through about anywhere between 27 to 30 years, it takes him a long time to travel all the way around the wheel. And as Saturn goes through different constellations and different houses, it brings us through different phases of our life. Now, a little background on Saturn. He seems to come with a little bit of a very somber and melancholy reputation and personality. A very important god to the Romans. This is where we get Saturnalia from, which eventually became Christmas. He can be recognized as Father Time. He is immortalized as time itself. So he is eternal. We all face time. We all, as mortal creatures, we have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Much like a story arc. And Saturn is also depicted in his glyph, astrologically. It kind of looks like a number 5, but it's really a sickle. And then the sickle connected to the Father Time image. So I think we're seeing a clearer picture now. Saturn has a lot of mythology and a lot of history. I don't want to get too deep into that. We'll talk about the different gods and goddesses on another road trip. But astrologically, Saturn measures time. And he also gives a clue to astrologers on restrictions. Sometimes can be looked at as old money. And he has a cranky kind of edge to him, because if he is Father Time, then he is pretty old, isn't he? But Saturn is also, because of represented by the sickle, he also cuts the threads that the fates weave for us, if you want to look at that very poetically. So Saturn cuts the umbilical cord. So from the moment of birth and through the rest of our life, Saturn is going to play a very important role. And since Saturn, astronomically, is a planet that's kind of way far out in our solar system, he's very slow moving and has a very indirect influence on everything in existence. But since we're speaking about people right now for birth chart's sake, we'll stick to the importance in people's life. So, once the umbilical cord is cut, Saturn then begins his journey. And this leads us into a couple of interesting areas, especially the terrible twos. when, as babies and children, we're teething, growing pains, but we can't vocalize, or we can't articulate what we're going through, so we cry, we scream, we stay up night, we drive our parents, grandparents, babysitters, brothers and sisters crazy. So again, connected to that very melancholy, somber, uncomfortable personality that Saturn possesses, or has the reputation of. So Saturn takes his time very slowly to go through a 30-year cycle, which is called the Saturn return. The Saturn return comes in for a landing beginning around 27. That's an estimate or a guesstimate. You would really have to look into someone's very specific birth chart to see when the Saturn return is actually occurring. And in my experience, the way it looks to me is that it lasts a couple of years. It's not a situation that kind of comes and goes real fast. If he takes his time, then he is definitely going to take his time with the Saturn return. What I always have to explain to clients is that life from birth until about 27 is the dress rehearsal. This is where we're really influenced by everything from our family, our environment, our surroundings, television, music, radio, rock stars, athletes, fill in the blank of whatever your interests are. This is when we're absorbing things like a sponge, which is growing our opinions and growing our likes and our traits and contributing to what we've already been born into this world with. So Saturn comes along, making his Saturn return at around 27, and then boom, slices that part of youth. Now we're on the main stage. Now it's all for real. So right before the Saturn return, this is when we start to, the party starts ending. Things get a little serious. But, you know, if you have a fun, jovial personality and you're just always upbeat through life, it doesn't mean you escaped Saturn's return. It just means, you know, you have stars in other places that are making up for the pain or the shock Saturn can cause some other people. But these are the times of life when we start waking up and realizing we don't like the music on our iPods anymore. We look in the closet and say, who bought these clothes? People start considering marriage, long-term commitments. They're getting their first promotions that they're, you know, in their career that's lodging them into where they are. People are either breaking up from romantic relationships that could have started in teenage years or early 20s. Serious matters start to come into play. And this is the Saturn return. It changes all of us. None of us leave unscathed. It's just the way it goes. And so it's a really important time that we don't talk about in society. We talk about puberty, of course. We talk about legalized celebrations. You know, people turn 18, they get cars, 21, they can drink, but they don't talk about the late 20s, early 30s. They seem to skip this. And it's a very important time to watch the mile markers for, because of the change that's occurring. It cuts us from our youth. It doesn't mean we're not young anymore. It just cuts us from our youth and puts us into a whole new cycle. So now we begin a new 30-year cycle, which lasts from about 30 until about 60. Then Saturn comes for us again at 60, which then cuts away youth and introduces us to maturity and an older age. And in our day and age, in the 21st century, 60 is not like what it was a generation or two ago. There's still a lot of vitality, life, and you know, experience to be had by 60. But at that point, at that second Saturn return, you would have been full through your career. If you had families, you would have raised your families and sent them off into the world. You would have completed what it was like to have owned a home. All the things that the first cycle prepared you for and you worked for, now you could either let them go. This is when people retire. They downsize from big houses to small condos. They go from living in the city to the beach someplace, or they go travel. They're free, they're liberated. And then from 60 until 90 is another Saturn return. And those are called the golden years, of course. And of course, by the time we get to 90, you know, if you've lived a good long life, and by 90, you know, you still may have another 10, 15 years to go, but Saturn's third return is kind of getting you ready for leaving the body behind and becoming the next level, going to heaven, becoming a spirit, being freed from the material world. So Saturn comes 3 times in our lives, and it's important to watch for the signs. All the planets do go through their returns, although you may not see a Pluto return. Jupiter returns, Uranus returns, and then, you know, other planets, like, of course, Venus, Mercury, Mars. These return more often than these other planets because they're very far away, and their course around the sun and around the Earth takes a lot longer. Now, when facing your Saturn return, no matter what age you're at, if you do it gracefully, you're going to come through a much happier person. If you resist and you don't watch for the signs, you're going to end up being the person left at the party or the nightclub when the ugly lights come on, and it could be very devastating. And my advice and suggestion would be, find out if you've had your Saturn return. So if you're not 27 yet, you haven't reached it. If you're anywhere between 27 and 30, you're going through it. So expect the odd changes in your life, the maturity spouts, where you look in the mirror and you kind of look like your mom and your dad all of a sudden, and you feel a little bit more mature. All of a sudden, you don't want to be hanging out with the 18 to 24-year-olds. You're experiencing your Saturn return. If you're over 30, there's a liberating feel that comes with it. And the feel that comes with the post-Saturn return of any age is this liberated feeling of not trying so hard to be impressive. We kind of discovered our boundaries, and Saturn is equivalent to our boundaries. And even if we want to break through those boundaries, at least we know what they are and where they are, and that helps us get through it better. So there's a lot more to discuss about the Saturn return that gets a little bit more technical than that, but I figured this would be a good introduction, and I find myself explaining this a lot to clients when they come and sit with me, especially in a tarot card reading. There's lots of symbols and signs that will let you know a person's about to or going through a Saturn return. The Hermit card in specific positions will always be the dead giveaway. That will always let you know this person is going through their Saturn return. And there's more to it than that, of course. We'd have to do another video on it, but I hope that this is a good introduction to the Saturn return, and I hope that it's answered a few questions you may have had about it, or if you didn't know about it, enlightened you a little bit. But please, by all means, if you have more questions about this topic, leave a comment in the box below, or email me at AusetGypsy@gmail.com, and please continue watching the rest of the videos in this collection. Subscribe and share all of these with your friends, and I appreciate it to everyone out there who has been doing that, and I'll just keep making more videos if you keep watching. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'm about at my destination, and I will look forward to picking up where we left off next time I hit the road. All right, ciao.
Wow.